Welcome to Techbasement. I'm Dean Jackson.
And I'm Matt Zielinski.
And we're here on the road at very awesome Pivotal Labs. And going to introduce Lawrence. Lawrence, what's your role here at Pivotal Labs?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
So I'm the office director here at Pivotal Labs. What does that mean? Mostly I am on the hook for bringing the right projects into the labs, but we'll talk more about that later. But essentially, I run the office, making sure that our folks are happy on client engagements and that the client's happy also.
Very, very cool.
We should share where are we? Where's the location?
Yeah, so we're in the new Pivotal Labs Sydney office. We've been here since May, so a couple of months now. We've been operational in Australia since last November. We're in a co-working space down the road at Techbasement Labs.
Yeah.
And very cool offices. We have a breakfast area over there. The breakfast is just getting set up right now.
Yeah.
You do that every day, and some cool ping pong tables.
Yeah. I'm hoping that we can actually get time for breakfast later, but I can smell the bacon cooking.
Very cool office, and cool to be here interviewing you. We always ask our guests a couple personal questions,
Sure.
and you can throw in whatever you want along the way. But we always ask, a couple things about you. So what was your favorite video game growing up?
Definitely Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 2. What platform?
What you mean?
Console.
Oh, no. Just
the original.
Arcade.
The original.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cool.
Did you have a platform at home, like a?
I think I had a PlayStation. Yeah,
PlayStation.
But I don't think Street Fighter came out on PlayStation. It was more of a Sega thing. Actually, I went to a conference 2 weeks ago in Vegas, and they had arcade games set up in the booth area, which I hadn't seen before, which is pretty cool. And they had Street Fighter there. They had one of those arcade machines where you had like hundreds of different games you could cycle through, all the emulators. And there was some epic battles of Street Fighter. You guys know Andrew Clashover?
Yes.
Yeah. He was kind of the MC of the whole conference. This was Spring One Platform in Vegas. Our annual conference was about 2,000 developers there. And when he was doing his thing up on stage in front of 2,000 people, he challenged people to Street Fighter. So I kind of texted him and said, yeah, I'll give you a go. Because I used to be pretty good. But he was amazing. Every single character he beat me. I think I beat him once with Blanca, the big green dude. But even with like Chong Li or that weird Indian guy, the Dal Sim, with the big long arms.
Yeah.
He was awesome at every character.
So we were talking earlier that probably should get a tabletop vintage arcade game here. So I think that'll be the first one on it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say I'm going to a conference in the US, it's not a big party in Vegas. This is what
there was some of that. But no, I mean, I took a couple customers there. We had Telstra and CallLogic, and it was good to network with the global team.
Good. All right. Well, let's talk about labs a little bit. So
Yeah.
I want to understand what Pivotal Labs does, what you're doing in Australia and globally. Tell us a bit about the operation here.
Yeah. So as I said, we started the office around November, so been going for 7-8 months. But before that, if we go back, I've been in Pivotal since its inception, really, in 2013. So 4 years now. And I was mainly working on the Cloud Foundry side with customers across the Asia Pacific. In pre-sales, I ran a team across the region, helping our larger customers implement the technology. I heard that Pivotal Labs was coming to Australia because they were doing this joint venture with Telstra to help bring labs to Australia quickly with the help of the Telstra brand. And I got a phone call from Rob Mead, the CEO, and he said, I heard that you're interested in labs and running a startup, and I think I can provide both of those things if you're interested in looking at doing labs in Sydney. So I said, yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, there's only one caveat. You have to ship your whole family to San Francisco for 3 months just to be involved in the office over there, ingrained in the culture. And I did a project. I was lucky enough to work on the Mercedes-Benz project.
Very cool.
For Connected Car. And
this is that app that they built for... Yeah. Very cool.
Mercedes Me.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing experience. And then spent a lot of time with a couple of senior execs over there, just working out how to run the big office.
Right. And then you brought that back here, brought the culture back.
Yeah, so the easiest way to do that is we brought what we call a seed team. So while I was over there, I kind of recruited a bunch of folks, not only in the San Francisco office, but New York and Toronto as well, to come back and start the office with me. Their time is coming up, sadly, so I'm a bit worried about that. But because every time we open a new office, you can't expect to hire folks off the street and work the Pivotal way. It takes at least kind of 3 months to kind of be trained up in that process. So the idea being bring a seed team over, help with the hiring, really work on projects and have new hires shadow to learn everything, just like a client would with that when they come in, to be honest with you. And then the seed team go home. The Sydney was the 16th office. I think we're up to 18 now. After Sydney, they opened Berlin and Atlanta.
Okay.
But Sydney wasn't the first office in Asia Pacific. They opened Tokyo before Sydney, and they've also opened Singapore. But that's an interesting one because Pivotal Labs used to have an office in Singapore circa 2011, and then we sold it to a company called Neo. I don't know if you read the press about this.
No.
And Neo was a similar company, did Agile consulting. They did pairing and XP as well. We'll talk more about that.
We'll get into the Pivotal way in a little bit, but keep going.
But then Pivotal decided to buy it back off Neo, so now it's Pivotal Office again.
Right. Okay. So back up a little bit. I want to try and understand what Pivotal Labs does. There's a lot of people that won't. What is it? What is the organisation, and what does it achieve for a customer?
Probably worth going back a few years to where it started. Pivotal Labs has actually been around for more than 20 years. Started in San Francisco in the Bay Area, working with the likes of Google, Netflix, Instagram, eBay. I think eBay was like the first customer. But in those days, it was more about helping engineering teams get better at doing software. If you had an app to build, if you're a startup, you may have been a passionate CEO and you might have had a vision about an idea and a product, but you didn't know how to execute. You'd come to Pivotal Labs to get that engineering excellence, and we would help train and hire engineers for you, and then at the end of the day build an MVP, and you go back and you have a software team that can go on and do the second iteration of the product. That was awesome for many years. Worked with a lot of big tech companies in the Valley, and then we kind of transitioned into the enterprise space around about the same time that EMC acquired Pivotal Labs. And there was a very different problem there. It's like, I don't even know what to build. Okay, so that's when we added product management and product design to the practice, if you will, to more focus on building the right thing for the customer. A lot of big enterprises get kind of blinkers and lose sight of what the customer really wants. And so what we do is step outside that, almost come in with unbiased view and go and talk to the customer's users and ask what they want, get their point of view. And we bake that into the software. A lot of times customers come to us and say, can you build this thing? What we end up actually building is not the thing they asked for, but it's the thing that the customers want, the end users wanted. So that's kind of changed the dynamic because enterprises want to do software like a startup, but the challenge is actually building great customer experiences.
So you've shifted, I guess, a little bit from helping startups, but you still do that today.
It's about 20% of the business.
And helping Silicon Valley style companies.
Correct.
To now taking that knowledge into enterprises. So you mentioned, in terms of industry, so you mentioned automotive industry. What are the other kind of main areas that Labs is operating in?
Yeah, I mean, automotive is definitely the biggest one. We've done the connected car app for Mercedes, Volkswagen, BMW, Ford, who also invested in the company, and a company in Silicon Valley I can't quite mention that does alternative energy cars.
Okay.
Figure that one out.
So there's a big laundry list of automotive companies there, and companies around that as well in the motoring industry, not necessarily who are car manufacturers. Speak to a couple in Australia actually around that, which is quite interesting. on the back of, obviously our success in the US and Europe.
So would you say it's like a lot of industries that are being disrupted? So like car industry is being disrupted by that company and other emerging ones.
Yeah,
maybe
it's like
hotel chains.
You look at
they're
Ford.
getting disrupted by Airbnb or something like that.
Correct.
So they're looking at ways to adjust.
Well, if you take like Ford is a 100-year-old company, right? How do they be nimble and agile and build great customer experiences? So that's why they kind of invested in us as well, because we're taking them on a journey around transformation, building them several labs so they can go do it themselves. Our model is not to have a 2-year engagement with a customer. It's to do a short engagement where we build an app, but at the same time enable our customers into becoming better at building software themselves. And that's exactly what we're doing forward. We built one app, the Ford Pass app, which is a connected car, and it also incorporates ride sharing and stuff as well. But we've set them up for success to go and do the same thing themselves, right? That's kind of the end game for us. Our mission is to transform the way the world builds software, not to be a consulting company that has a 2-year contract. But other industries we've kind of seen that are quite interesting is insurance. We work with the 3 of the major insurance companies in the US.
Banking would go hand in hand with that.
Yeah, banking's interesting because they've got a lot of regulation. So a lot of the apps I can't really talk about are trying to, not get around the regulations, but improve the way that works, so they don't get exposed, if you will, to the regulatory bodies. Yeah.
Okay. Other industries, retail?
Retail, yeah. Retail is quite a good one. Like if you look at Home Depot, for example, they realised that Amazon was selling more hammers than they were online, so they better do something about it. So they kind of shifted all their effort to building online presence versus the kind of bricks and mortars store. And they've figured in about 2018 that the online presence will be bigger than the actual stores. Think of Bunnings, right?
Yeah.
There'll be if Bunnings could sell more online than they do in the actual store. That's kind of where Home Depot is going.
Yep.
Gotcha. So let's talk through the process a little bit. So an enterprise like a bank is sitting there thinking, I need to get better at the way I deliver software. They engage Pivotal Labs. What happens? What's the engagement like? How long is it typically for?
It's usually about 3 months. We start with something called discovery and framing, which really speaks to the lean process around trying to work out the thing that we're going to build. The discovery piece of the framing, usually about 2 weeks, we'll start wide and do a lot of exploratory research to go and find a signal in the market or a pain point that users are experiencing and focus on that. We usually anchor on a persona, a problem, or a solution, one of those 3. And we do a lot of user research around those points to try and draw out the pain points, and we synthesize all that data in the discovery piece, and then maybe go and build a prototype, and then go back to test it with you to make sure that we're actually on the same page before we actually build the software. So that's the kind of 2 to 4 week discovery and framing piece. It uses it draws a lot of the concepts from Eric Ries's Lean Startup around doing experiments, and focusing on what not to build as part of the MVP, for example. Once we've got an idea of what we're building, but not plan the whole project or not doing architecture up front or anything like that. All we need really is a set of wireframes and maybe 1 to 2 weeks worth of backlog before we begin coding, begin development. On the first day of development, we have inceptions where everyone comes together, the product management, design, the clients, and the engineers come together to really be on the same page of what we're building, because it's the first time the engineers have really been introduced to the problem space. That's usually one day, and then on the Tuesday, let's say, we start building and start pushing code to production. And one of the reasons why we require customers to come here is we're all set up to actually do that, to actually push code, from day one. Obviously, we've got our platform set up, Pivotal Cloud Foundry ready to go. We've got continuous integration ready to go. We've got the pairing stations as well that hopefully you'll see later. So there's no real setup. Okay, the only thing to do is to take a story from the backlog, write the code, and push it to production. And typically, the development phase takes around 12 weeks. As I said, we're not looking to do huge engagements. What we're looking for is to build the first MVP, get it to market. It may not have all the bells and whistles, but it's going to be viable.
You're using that acronym. A lot of people might not know that acronym. MVP.
Minimal viable product.
Most valuable program.
Yeah, we don't want to spend too much time on the whole feature set that hasn't been validated. So we'll start with one persona. We'll find their pain points and focus on a couple of features. But what we'll do is the solution will be a whole vertical slice of the app. So it's functional, so we can ship it every day to production, and it's usable. In fact, which speaks to the way we write our stories as well in the backlog.
So this is bringing some of the startup mindset to some of these enterprise customers. Just get something out there and get something working, even though it's not perfect. It doesn't have every bell and whistle that they originally wanted.
Yeah.
And getting them thinking that way to get stuff rolling.
Yeah, I mean, look at Google. They used to have the beta program where they just ship products all the time just to get feedback, right? Collect feedback. It's exactly the same concept. We want to get it into the hands of users quickly. And we want to do it before the end of the engagement. If it's a 3-month engagement, we want to be shipping code like first, second week, right? It may be a trivial thing, but at least like the stakeholders and the users can experiment with it and give us feedback, and we can course correct our process is set up so we can actually adapt and change directions and pivot. That's what I did there. Yeah. During the process, probably worth talking about how that happens, right? So I mentioned the kind of discovery and framing piece, which is more around the lean startup approach, doing those experiments, but that actually carries on through the development as well. There's a bigger upfront piece, but we're constantly, hustling and working with the client and working on the next week's worth of backlog. So when the developers start in parallel, the product team, so the product manager, the designer, and the client PM are thinking about the next week's iteration, right? So they're in parallel hustling, doing user research, and doing that kind of discovery and framing piece in a micro format during that week. Just because the hardest thing that if you ask any product manager, the most stressful thing for them is to feed the backlog, to keep the developers busy,
Really?
because they're so fast, right?
So coming up with the ideas what to do next is the challenge.
Yeah, and so
unusual challenge.
if a developer's sitting there idle, if the pair of developers sitting there idle, then it's costing the client money.
It's very different to most enterprise organizations, right? We frame it in the context of seeing customers that are there saying, I've got all these ideas, and it's going to take IT a year to deliver the first one, right? Must be a massively different world for them. Do you get people coming in going, wow, this is just going to change my organization if we can implement it back home?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say there is that you have to experience it. So, yes, you can see us, the pairing stations and the activity, and it's kind of electric, right? But you can't just say, okay, yes, I want one of those things and go back and try and implement it. It's tough, right? You have to experience it. So for anyone looking to do kind of transformation in this style, come and do a project and kind of live and breathe it. That's exactly why they sent me to San Francisco to do that Mercedes project, so I could live and
learn the
right?
secrets.
Because I've been doing software for 15 years, right? But never in this style. I thought I was doing Agile. I worked at News. I thought I was doing Scrum, but this is dialed up to the next level, right? And a lot of customers come in and say, "Oh yeah, I get it. I'm doing Agile. I don't really see the step change." But I ask them like, how many releases do you do a day? Oh, we don't do daily releases. We do monthly releases. It's like, so that's the difference, right? Yeah. We're shipping code every day, right? And they say, oh, we're doing stand-ups and retros, but that's not Agile, right? It's the intangible things. So they're just the ceremonies, but the important stuff is the transparency and the collaboration you get by working in a balanced team out there together. So that's the engineering, product management, design, and the clients all working together. But let's talk about the stand-up. So just quickly at a high level, there's 4 things we cover in the company stand-up. One is any new faces, because there's a lot of people coming into the office all the time. You guys can introduce yourself this morning.
Awesome.
We talk about any events coming up, any meetups, because we host lots of meetups in the office. Yeah. Any interesting, so any kind of tech news or anything like that. And that's about it, right? It lasts for about 5 minutes. And then, we all clap and break away. And then what happens is the team go away and do project stand-up. That one's more specific because that focuses on what you did yesterday, what you're doing today, and then who's pairing. So we rotate the pairs every day, which is important to kind of get that breadth of knowledge and collective ownership across.
So that helps
team.
with the learning.
Yeah.
Stronger team members might share something they've learned with others. Is that
absolutely? Yeah. And it kind of spread the risk too. We have this concept called high bus count. So if everyone has context of the whole code base, then it doesn't really matter if someone's sick or not in the office. The team will survive. What we do here is think about software development as a in the general sense. So we don't, at least our engineers don't specialize in one stack or one concept around data or back end or front end, right? Our developers are full stack.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to what I spoke before around user-centered design, because all of our stories are written in the mindset of a user, Fred, as I mentioned. So it forces developers to actually have empathy for the user. And then what they end up with, a story is that one vertical slice of the app, so they can ship that one story to production. It'll work. Yeah. And so developers are actually working on front end in the JavaScript, back end in Rails or Java, and then in database work in a single story, right? So they have to switch context all the time, or it might be iOS, Android on the front end, Spring on the back end, something like that. But it's full stack.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've talked a lot about the concept or the methodologies you apply, right? So it ranges from the lean startup methodology through to Agile extreme programming, through to tools that you're using, pivotal tools at the back end to automate everything. So customer comes in, they learn this whole process. They, get all excited. They go back to their organization. How does it translate then to a customer that then changes what they do? I mean, is this something they come in, they learn some new concepts, but they go home and go, this is really hard to implement in my environment because that's not the way we do it. What's the process from there?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I said before, this stuff is hard. It's not easy, all right? But, we have some tools, I guess, set up to make it easier for a customer when they go back to actually institute some of the process.
Yeah.
And I guess the first thing I would say is that start small and do one project with us. Don't try and do the big bang transformation. It doesn't work. Do a small 3-month engagement with bring in 4 to 6 people that can go back and train other folks. So we're in the business of training the trainer, teaching people how to fish. I mentioned before that when we bring folks in at the start, they might not be used to this environment, right? And especially, we do pairing and test-driven development. They may not have done that before, so it's very foreign to a client. And so we help them through that, and we drive a lot of the decisions and build a lot of the code while they're shadowing, at least at the start. Mm-hmm. But at some point, we kind of flip that and encourage the client to drive and actually lead, because at the end of the day, we're successful when we've built a team and a set of champions that can go back and institute this culture. We have a concept of anchor as part of my team. We have a lead engineer who is responsible for the overall technology choices, the overall enablement of the clients, and then really having a close working relationship with the client. Halfway through the engagement, we hand that anchor ship over to a client so that they can run the project. Because if we lead the whole engagement, it's going to be very difficult for that team to go back into their own office, to carry on the process. But if we, build those champions, they go back, they start educating the rest of the organisation. They may set up a labs. We work with a leading investment bank here in Australia, and they did a project with us and set up their own lab, and they actually enhanced our process somewhat. They added to the pivotal process.
That's cool.
For example, when you walk in, you have to put your mobile phone in a glass jar.
Yeah.
I don't know where they got that from. That we didn't do that. Okay. And so that they've made their own kind of flavor of the pivotal process.
Very cool. So I think breakfast is almost wrapping up. We're getting close to stand-up, so I think we should wrap up here. We don't want to be late for the stand-up. Okay. Just a couple more questions, just to finish up. Yeah. For everybody watching, how can they get involved, engage with Pivotal Labs? Like, obviously, there's customers coming in. Yeah. But if people are just interested, is there any social media they can follow, join in? Can they drop into a local Pivotal Labs office to check it out? Can you give some people some ideas?
The best way actually is to attend some of our meetups. So we do weekly tech talks, and there's actually one today. Every Tuesday, in addition to bringing breakfast in, we bring lunch in on Tuesdays for tech talks. We have quite a diverse set of talks around blockchain, virtual reality, scaling Agile. And one today is about sketchnoting and designing. And so there's a whole variety of different topics, diversity. We did one on XP, obviously. And so I think that gives customers a good taste of what Pivotal is all about the community. We also host many meetups during the evenings. At the moment, we do the Docker meetup. We do Ruby on Rails Oceania, which there's about 1,000 members of that. We do the Cloud Native meetup, which is talking about our Cloud Foundry and Spring projects, as well as other Cloud Native platforms like Docker and Kubernetes and stuff like that. We do something called the Lean Startup, which is quite interesting. It speaks to our kind of startup audience, and we have founders coming in talking about how they built their business using Lean. Like, for example, we had Liz Kalin, who is the founder of YouTubers. She was on Shark Tank recently. Right. We got an investment. She's a catering distributor.
Okay. Is that a meetup group? The Lean
Lean Startup.
So you can find that on Meetup.
So if you go to meetup.com, in fact, the best link to go to is if you Google Meetup and then Pivotal Labs Sydney. We have a kind of a landing page for all the meetups, and we post our weekly tech meetups and tech talks in there, but also put our links to our other meetups as well. So,
and for those not in Sydney or Australia, there's going to be landing pages for the Pivotal Labs globally on Meetup.
If you go to pivotal.io/labs, you'll see all the offices.
Yeah, cool.
You can click on the office and you can get the address and contact details there.
And could people drop in?
Sure.
Yeah.
We have a friendly happiness director. We don't call them receptionist or anything. She's our director of happiness. Sorry.
Yes.
And so come and see her at our Sydney office, and she'll show you around.
So awesome. It's level 11, 155 Clarence Street.
Yeah.
Address right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. And following you on Twitter, what's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, at Lawrence Crowther.
At Lawrence Crowther?
Yeah, LOZCROWTHER.
Excellent. Fantastic.
We'll head out for breakfast, go for a stand-up. We'll do a couple of videos and show that at the end of this for viewers.
Excellent.
Thanks so much for your time. Excellent description of Pivotal Labs. Really excited about it. And thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.